You're in a prestigious job. You've worked hard to get where you are. You've had years of study, qualifications, exams. You're thinking about changing career, but why would you want to give all of that up? And what's it going to be like if you start again at the bottom rung of the ladder? Well, this week's guest did exactly that. I'm Jeremy Klein, and this is Change Work Life. Hello and welcome to the Change Work Life podcast, where we're all about beating the Sunday evening blues and enjoying Mondays again. If you want to know how you can enjoy a more satisfying and fulfilling working life, you're in the right place. And if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, Happy New Year! I hope 2023 is a great year for you. One of the biggest objections that you might have to changing career is having to start all over again. You've worked hard over a number of years to build up your skills and reputation in one area, and quite naturally, you're worried about going back down to the bottom rung of the ladder if you change to a completely different career. Well, today we're going to hear from someone who has done just that. Viviane Freitas was an architect who went through a complete career pivot and started an apprenticeship in marketing. Viviane is also a former coaching client of mine, and I'm delighted to have her on the show to tell her story. Viviane, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to tell my story and hopefully help some people and inspire them to do that change.
I'm certain you will. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about what your job is now?
Sure. So at the moment, I am a marketing assistant for a global law firm. I assist them in creating and delivering global campaigns, also creating content, planning and organizing events.
And as I mentioned at the top, you started out as an architect. So what was it that got you into architecture in the first place?
Right. I was 17, just finished high school, didn't know anything about myself or about life in general. The only thing I knew I was good at was drawing. And then I thought, well, architecture, drawing, that makes sense. That's the obvious choice. I'm going to go for that. And that's how it happened, Jeremy. And I started university and I knew it wasn't for me. Like I never felt the passion. But then I was already there and I didn't know what else to do. So I'm going to get along with this. I'm going to finish this degree and then I'll figure out what to do. And it was a 5-year course. So it's a very hard course. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of time invested, money. So when you are in the middle of that, you don't want to give up. And I'm one of those persons that if I start something, I'll finish it. And that's exactly what happened. Like 6 years later, I had a degree and it still wasn't passion for what I was doing. Or I was an adult at that point, had bills to pay. I had ambitions for myself, for my career. So I just carry on for a long time.
Did that strike you as being kind of normal? So were you of the mindset that you thought, oh, well, this is something which I'm not particularly passionate about, but it's a good career and, well, that's okay because no one really likes their job. I'll just do something because I'm good at and, yeah, just acknowledge the fact that it's not something that I'm necessarily particularly passionate about.
Exactly that. Because I didn't have a plan B, because I didn't have any passion or hobbies, that felt normal. Well, this is life. I'll have a degree. It's a very good course. It could open many doors. And just to clarify, it was architecture and urban planning. So I felt like I had 2 options there. And I quite enjoyed the urban planning side of things more than architecture itself. It was a little bit of comforting. In the end, it just didn't work out for me. And that was sad somehow because I really wanted it to work out. You know, everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to do something that they enjoy. And I did many work experience at the time. I was like, I need to find the right place for me. Maybe just the right office, maybe just the right team. And I kept going, looking for that right place, and I couldn't find it.
So that sounds like it was that led you to conclude that it wasn't the place you were working that was the problem, but it was the what you were doing, the career as a whole.
Exactly. And that was the story of my life for many years. And I don't know if we're going to talk about that now, but once I said out or loud, this is not for me, the first thing my friends, family, they would say, just change the company, just to apply for another job, just take a vacation. You might be tired. You're so good at it, you can't give it up. But I would trying to find another job. I didn't apply for like architecture jobs, but I would read the job description and it was exactly what I used to do. So what was the point? I've realized that it wasn't the company. It wasn't me as well, because at some point I was blaming myself. Well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I did something wrong, and it's hard. And at the end, I realized it wasn't me. It was just the wrong choice at the time. I was 17. How can I blame myself for something that happened years ago and I was a teenager?
That's really interesting, this idea of blaming yourself. And you're quite right. I mean, when you're 17, who knows anything about anything at that stage? You know, it's a big world out there, and you haven't really had much exposure to it. And you're kind of making a decision when you choose your degree, which could lead on you to your career. And if you do you have other people sort of who, you know, you were at university with at the same time who have had a similar realization? You know, maybe they kind of blamed themselves for what they'd chosen and are now realizing that it was simply that they didn't really know what they were choosing at the time.
Yes, Jeremy, it happens a lot. I think especially now that we're getting around 30s and you really evaluate your life, what you want to achieve, what you have achieved. And I have so many friends that once I came open and said, architecture is not for me, I'm going to do a career change, I got so much support from these people saying, we're here for you, like you're going to be fine, and please let us know how you did it, because I'm also interested. So many people that graduated with me, they are not in the area anymore. Maybe they open a business. Maybe they are just working something completely different, but it's still figuring out what to do next. And it's so important when you have someone next to you, someone from your bubble that knows they struggle, that know how hard the course was and how much it meant for us. Like, to leave that on the side and start something new is scary. And I talk with friends on a daily basis, like, I'm much happier now. This is how I did it. This is what you could do. And then I recommend them loads of movies, books, and small things like that, because it took me 2 years, Jeremy, to do like my career transition. It wasn't a month. It wasn't a week. I would like to make people aware that it's going to take you time. And it's fine, because it's a transformation. You won't be ready in a month. You change from the inside out. It's not just changing industries. You change a lot of things about yourself.
And the important point there, which you just mentioned, is that there's no hurry. I mean, the only person who is keeping score really is you. And yes, you might be in a position where you're kind of sick of what you're doing and you just want out. But if you take your time over the transition, yes, continually moving forward, not just, you know, sitting and not doing anything, but yes, if you take your time, that's fine. That's okay. You take as long as you need.
Yeah, it's difficult when you are in that situation, because I got to a point, Jeremy, that I would arrive on a Friday evening and I would just cry. I just couldn't cope with the pressure. And then on a Saturday, my friends would meet up and do something, and I didn't want to go because I didn't want to talk about work. You know, it's a natural conversation. How is work doing, like going? What do you do? I didn't want to meet new people. I didn't want to talk about my job, my career at all. It was something that I was like, I'm done with this. I don't have the energy. I don't have the motivation. And I was depressed at some point. So I started doing therapy to understand more about what was happening. And that helped me to make the decision. This is the right thing for me to do. I need to find a solution for my problem because this is my life we're talking about. I know that my family said, oh, you're going to be fine. You just need a vacation. But that wasn't the case. So I had to find the courage and say, right, I'm doing this. How do I start?
Which leads nicely on to my next question. So you were pretty confident that architecture wasn't for you and that you needed to do something different. At that stage, did you have any idea what that something else might be?
I had zero idea. And that's so overwhelming because you think over and over again, like, where do I start? What can I do? What am I good at? So at that point, I wasn't using social media for almost a year just because I didn't want to compare myself to others. I didn't want to see like how happy people were in their work life and how miserable I was. So after that year and after realizing I had to do something for me, I decided to come back to social media just as a research tool. Because as we mentioned, when I was 17, there wasn't the internet that we have today. There wasn't all of these tools and amazing people talking about anything you can think of. So I found your podcast on LinkedIn, and then it was a sense of community. There were more people like me. There were professionals talking about it, loads of coaching, giving their advice, giving some resource that you could look at. So that was one of the first thing I came across. And I was like, okay, this is promising. There are so many routes that I could take. That's when I started reading books. That's when I started embodying the whole career change and knowing that it was possible. And on Instagram, I came across career coaching, Joanna Orvalho. And at that point, she was running a career challenge on Facebook. So it was online and free. So why not? I decided to do that. I can't remember how many women, it was specifically for women. I can't remember now how many of us. But there was this group of women from all over the world with the same problem. For the first time, Jeremy, I felt that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. It all made sense. Like there were more people in the same boat, on the same boat. So the challenge worked in that way. She would give us an exercise during the morning, and you would have the whole day to reflect on that. That would include your values, what was important for you, what you liked as a child, what would your dream job be, all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, she would run a live and we would have the opportunity to speak with each other, to ask her questions about career change. And that helped me a lot in terms of, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm going to do this and this is going to be fine. At the end of that week, she would choose a person to win a session with her. And I won that. And it was so good to have that one-to-one time to discuss my career. Because that's the thing about career coaching. It's about you. It's not like a plan fits all. It's about what you want for your career. It's what you are good at, what your fears are. So it was very good to draw that plan with her. And after that free session, I decided to pay for other sessions because I really saw the results coming. I felt confident. At that point, I wasn't sure about marketing. Let's make that clear. But one of the advice she gave was, you need to talk with people. You need to know what other people do outside your bubble because all of my friends, they were from architecture. So that's all I knew, Jeremy. And it's hard to think outside of the box when all you know is architects. So I decided to talk with friends of friends and from people that I knew because I wasn't confident at that point to speak with strangers about it. And one of the first person I spoke with was a flatmate of mine. He happens to be a marketing manager. And I was like, okay, what do you do on your job? Why does it make you happy? And all these small talks that really gave me an insight about the industry. And then I started talking with other people as well. But when you analyze your values, what you want for your career, and what I liked about architecture, I realized that I would like to be in a creative industry. I would like to do loads of things at the same time. Like I love multitasking. That was important for me. And I like work in teams. So all of that along the months almost like clicked one day, like, marketing is a real possibility. It seems interesting. But I didn't took everything he told me as absolutely true. Like I wanted to hear from other people. So I started speaking with people from marketing, specifically like from other companies, other industries, and it felt right. Of course, I consider other paths. I consider fashion because creative, multitasking, teamwork. And I remember going on YouTube. There are loads of people that does this kind of video called A Day in a Life of X. Like whatever you want to do, there will be somebody on YouTube recording their day to day, like every single hour of their day. And that gives you a realistic view of what might be waiting for you. And that was really helpful as well. Besides like talking with friends and real people, I was just on YouTube researching all of this, and it really helped me. So that's when I thought marketing sounds really good. I was sure that it was aligned with what I wanted to do. I didn't have any guarantee that would be the perfect industry for me. And at that point, I was fine with that. I was like, okay, I don't need to get this 100% right. If I learn anything on the way, that's progress. I'm happy with that. And if I make the wrong choice again, well, so be it. I'll be a step closer to doing the right choice. It wasn't easy, Jeremy. It wasn't because, as you said at the beginning, I had a career in architecture. I had experience. Just one other thing I would like to mention, because that was also one of the things that made me realize that architecture wasn't for me. When I moved to the UK, I was fully qualified in Brazil. When I moved to the UK, I realized I would have to go back to uni and do what they call part 3. So to be fully qualified in the UK, you need to do a part 3. That would mean I would have to go back to uni and do a year of architecture. And I didn't want to do that, Jeremy. I could work as an architectural designer and architectural assistant, but to be architect and to want more and to progress in my career, I would have to do that year course. And I just realized that if I had to go back to uni, I would rather study something else. At that point, I was just sick and tired. I studied architecture for 6 years and I wasn't happy with it. So I didn't want to go back to uni. And that's when I was like, okay, if I don't want to invest in this career, it means it's not for me. Let's move on.
I'd like to go back to the conversations that you had with people. So you mentioned that you started with friends of friends and then you reached out to people doing things that you wanted to do or that you sounded interesting to you in companies that sounded interesting. How did you reach out to them? So what did you use? Was it LinkedIn, direct emails, that kind of thing? And what was your sort of opening thing? How did you communicate to these people, out of the blue?
Yes, that's a great question, Jerry. And actually, I learned that from your podcast. I still remember, I think it was Austin. What is his
Austin
name?
Belsack.
Yes.
Yeah, episode 8, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. But in one of these episodes, they pretty much gave us a line. And I have a career change diary where I would make all of the notes and everything that I would learn along the way, and it's here with me. And he gave an idea of how do you approach strangers. And it was pretty much like, hi, I've seen that you work in this industry for X amount of time. Your career is really inspiring. I'm thinking of making this change. Would it be okay to have a 5-10 minutes chat or a coffee to talk about it? And that's what I used. And it works, Jeremy, because ultimately people are happy to help. And it's scary first time you do it, but the more you do, more natural it becomes, and it works.
What was your hit rate like? So how many people replied? How many people ignored you? How many people said, yeah, sure?
Of course, I was very strategic about it. Like, I wanted people that worked in marketing and perhaps some different background, like not a degree in marketing. And I think out of that strategy, I spoke with like 3 people that gave me valuable advice. It wasn't something like, oh, yeah, okay, I could read that anywhere else. It was something that helped me. And some of these people I still talk to this day. So it's a real connection. It's like networking. And that's so important.
And how did you know what to ask them?
I really wanted to make sure that it was the right industry for me. So I would focus on what kind of systems and programs do you use? What kind of strategy does it involve? What kind of activities? If you could give someone advice, someone that is just getting into that industry, what advice you would give? How can I be very good at my job? It was more these kind of questions.
So you did all this work and you concluded that marketing was the thing that you wanted to have a go at.
Yes.
And, you said it might not be 100% perfect, but you were reasonably sure that it was this thing that you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So having made that decision, what then are the next 1 or 2 steps that you had to take?
The first thing was to adapt my CV because I had an architecture CV. And I had to identify which skills I could apply into marketing. That was the first step. And I knew I had it, Jeremy. I was creative. I could work under pressure. I used to work hard. So somehow I was prepared. Like, I knew I could handle the next challenge. I know I could handle a job in marketing because I was well prepared in terms of I knew what they would be doing on their day-to-day life. It wasn't a surprise. So I started to do some courses because a friend of mine gave me really nice advice. She said, find a course that covers the basic and the boring of marketing. And if you like the boring, you will be prepared for anything else. So I went into HubSpot and Udemy and Domestika, all of these learning platforms. Some of them are for free, some of them you have to pay, but it's something that anyone could afford. It's like £15 for a course. So I started doing these courses to gain the vocabulary, to have something on my CV to say, I'm very interested, I'm very committed, I'm putting an effort to learn about this industry. And that's why I deserve an opportunity. So I was doing all these courses. I started speaking with recruiters. And then they were telling me things like, oh, it would be great if you had a CIM qualification that would make you stand out. And I was like, okay, I don't have a CIM qualification. So I started researching that. And I could do that while still working at architecture. I think it would cost like £2,000, and then I would have to study at the weekends, let's say. And I was prepared to do that. But I was just so desperate to leave architecture. So I wanted to make sure I got an experience besides the theory. Because, you could do a million courses, but until you do the job, you don't know how it is. So from that, I realized I wanted to do a job that would allow me to study because I felt I needed that theory. And I also needed the experience, like hands on. And that's when I came across apprenticeships, because that's, in a nutshell, it's exactly what it is. The company and the government, it's a whole scheme. So you have the opportunity to study and work. That was the thing for me. Like, I knew that I would be sure if I love it or if I hate it at the end. And that's why I decided to do the apprenticeship. But at the same time, it wasn't an easy decision, Jeremy, because I had how do you say down pay?
It's sort of like a drop in salary.
Yeah, so that wasn't easy, Jeremy, because I had to drop my salary. I had to start again. And it was sad in a way because, my God, what am I going to do? I'm almost 30 and I will have to start again from the bottom. It was such a hard decision, but I felt it was the right decision, the right thing to do, Jeremy. So I started applying for these apprenticeship schemes and I got one eventually, and I was really happy with it because I had a very clear image of what I wanted. I wanted to work for a big company. I wanted to work for a big marketing team. I didn't want to be the only person in marketing. Like, who would I learn from? I wanted to learn from people. I wanted to develop a networking. And that's why I found the perfect job for me. And I was really happy when I got it.
Talk a little bit more about how you worked through the sort of fears and doubts that you had. I mean, going from a prestigious career as an architect, I'm assuming reasonably well paid. Yes, okay, something that you didn't enjoy, but then going that to an apprenticeship, which is something that, traditionally people do out of school. Yeah. Talk us through a bit more detail how you kind of got through the fears and doubts and uncertainties that you had around that.
Right. So I saw the apprenticeship as an opportunity to know if marketing was for me. So the whole program would be, some of them are 1 year, some of them 2 years, but I gave myself a year to make sure it was the right decision. And although I was earning less, I knew I would learn a lot from it. And that's the thing. You can't put a price on an opportunity like that. People are willing to teach you. You would have the opportunity to work for a top 10 law firm. And money wasn't an issue anymore, Jeremy, because as I mentioned, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to meet people. I didn't want to talk with my friends. So at that point, money wasn't a priority. I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. And I knew the apprenticeship would give me that opportunity. And that's what helped me to overcome all of those fears and insecurities of, starting again.
When we first started to work together, you were already pretty well into your apprenticeship. And I remember thinking when you first got in touch to say that you were interested in coaching, I was kind of thinking, hang on, you've already been through your career change. What do you want from me? So can you talk a bit about what it is that you were looking for at that point and what you were looking to get out of coaching with me?
So I got my dream job. I got the first job in the industry, which is the hardest thing to do because it's that old story that you need experience to get a job. You need a job to get experience. And that was my biggest issue. And then I started my apprenticeship and I was really, really happy with it. For the first time in my life, Jeremy, I had that sense of, I finally enjoy what I do. And this is so nice. I was like a completely different person. I was just so happy and so excited with my future in that industry. But I didn't have a plan. So I've achieved everything I planned prior my career change. And now that was done and I wanted to make the most out of that opportunity. In my head, I had 1 year to be the best professional I could be, to progress quick, to learn everything I could. And that was an overwhelming feeling. I realized that I needed help to draw that plan, to plan like my 5-year career, what I would do next, or how could I meet people that would help me in that path. So that was the reason that I said to myself, I need help. And at that point, I would know you through the podcast, and it was almost like I knew you. That's a funny thing to say, but I just felt confident that you also knew the industry I was in, which was a law firm. You are a lawyer yourself. So I felt confident that you would be able to help me being the best I could at that job. And we started talking about my values again, because a lot of things has changed. I needed to understand what was important for me at that moment. Because again, my goals wasn't the same of a year ago. Now I was already there. How could I progress from that role? So we talked about values. We talked about strengths, weakness. It's very important to know what you're good at and what you're interested at, so you could be even better at your job. We talk about that. We talk about how important it is to build a networking of people. Again, I had done that in the past, but now I was in the industry. Now I wanted to know, how do I progress? It's not how I get into that. How can I be the best at it? So we talk about that, and that really helped me as well to be in contact with nice people from the industry, to learn from them, to almost like expand my mind somehow, and to learn from people, because that's important to me as well. We talk about future, like where do I see myself in 5 years? I think that was the main things, but also gaining confidence. Because at some point in this process, I said to myself, I don't know anything about marketing, so I know nothing. Like, I'm nobody in this industry. And I almost forgot all of my baggage, all of my experience from architecture. I learned a lot. Like, I used to work really hard in architecture. You need to know how to find solutions for any problems, let's put that way. And I could apply that into marketing. And I just noticed that, okay, maybe I'm not starting from zero. Maybe I can use all these skills and apply to this job and feel good about it, feel proud about my background. And at the end of our coaching sessions, that's how I felt. I felt confident. I got this. I'm doing really well. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I have to do to achieve things that I want.
And so would you say that there's been tangible results? What have you seen that's kind of actually been different that you can point to say, yeah, this has been different?
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of coaching for me, Jeremy. It's actionable and realistic steps. It's not like a magical theory, and you're not going to give me the solutions for all of my problems. And I think it's important for us to say that you can't help me if I don't put the effort, if I'm not willing to learn from you, to think about my actions, to think about my fears, to be honest with you, to be open. So I think it's a two-way job. Like, I have to help you for you to be able to help me. And I just felt so comfortable with you in telling like everything I was thinking, everything I was fearing. And I think that is what made the difference as well.
I have to say, from my perspective, you're quite right. I mean, you were a model client. We were, fully engaged, willing to be open about the things. You recognised that the time we had together, it was space for you. Our sessions were all about you. It was a container for you, and you could literally bring along anything that you wanted. So from that perspective, it was absolutely brilliant working with you. I mean, I loved it from my perspective, and it's good to know that it's good to know that it helped.
Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate it. Yes, as I said, it really helped me because it was realistic things that I could do on my day to day. I didn't have to come up with something extraordinary. It was like, okay, I can do this. You start small and you build that confidence. Like next time it's easier. For example, for me, it's a real challenge to say no to people. And we worked on that, and still not easy, but I have the tools now to, okay, how am I going to do this? Like, I can't do all of this right now. I have to say no to someone or to some things. And it really helped me with small things, with big things. And as I said, I'm confident now.
So you talked about 2-year plans, 5-year plans, that kind of thing. What do you see as being in your future now?
I have to say that I'm so happy with marketing, Jeremy. And when I was in architecture, I couldn't picture myself in 5 years' time in that industry. I couldn't. And now I can picture myself in 10 years' time, which is great, which is like a relief. It's almost like I'm doing the right thing, I'm on the right path. And, marketing is a very broad industry. And right now, I still like everything. So for me, I'm trying to find that specialism, that thing that I love the most and I could be the best at it. So right now, I'm still enjoying the experience. I'm still enjoying, okay, I like what I do and I'm not in a rush. And I truly believe that it will come to me naturally. Like, this is what I want to do. But the most important thing is I'm happy now. I'm happy now and I know where I want to get. And of course, it's still a challenge. It's not easy to plan your career, but I'm confident that I will achieve those roles that I dream of.
And so, having been through the process yourself, what would you say to someone who's thinking about changing career, but they're worried about starting out all over again?
It was the best thing I done for myself. And if I could go back in time, I would do exactly the same, Jeremy. And when I was hearing other voices, when I was hearing like family saying, oh, but you're so good at it. Oh, but you're gonna like give up on your career and in your studies and everything like that. They didn't know what was best for me. You know deep down what is the best for you. And during these 2 years of career change, I have learned how to listen to my intuition because, only you know what happens on a Friday night when you're crying after work. Only you knows when you lay down on a Sunday evening and you wish you wouldn't wake up just because you don't want to go to that job, you don't want to do that role. And it's cruel, Jeremy. It's hard. You know what is best for you and it will come to you naturally. Like if you put the effort, if you do your research, if you talk about people, don't be ashamed of telling, I'm not happy where I am. Like, what do you do? What do you think I could do? Just be open and like willing to learn and to try new things.
You've mentioned that you had coaching a couple of times now, and you also mentioned a few books and other things that helped you. Could you point to any specifically which you found particularly useful?
Sure. So one of the first books I came across during this whole process was What Color is Your Parachute? And that's nothing to do with marketing. It's more to do about what are the right things for you? What is important for you? What would you enjoy doing? And that really opened my mind to try new things and to explore my own feelings. Let's put that way. And also, as I mentioned, HubSpot, Udemy, Domestika, all these platforms, they have amazing resources that if you have a rough idea like, I would be interested in engineering, just do a small research and do like a short course just to know if that's something you're interested in. And lastly, I would say, I would repeat that YouTube is also an amazing research tool. If you want to know about any career, any paths, just search there a day in a life of an engineering. That would give you amazing ideas as well.
And if people want to get hold of you, I know you've talked a bit about your career change on Instagram. If someone wants to find you, what's the best place they can find you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Instagram and it's called Becoming Viviane. It's a weird name. It was inspired by Michelle Obama when she wrote that book, Becoming Michelle Obama. And it was more about becoming the best person I could be. And it was all about embracing these new changes, these challenges, and these new career. I give some career advice, not that I'm a professional at it, but sometimes I just tell people what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, and feel free to follow me. And I hope that will be useful somehow. I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't post a lot there, but feel free to get in contact with me to ask any questions about my career change, or if I could help anyone in any way, I would be happy to.
Brilliant. As always, there'll be links in the show notes. Viviane, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about your change of career. I think yours is an inspirational story. Best of luck for the future, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Jeremy, thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat. I'm really happy with it.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that interview with Viviane Freitas. As you'd expect, I got to find out a bit about Viviane as I was coaching her. But as I mentioned in the interview, it was after her change of career that she and I started working together, and this was the first time I'd really heard the story about how she made that pivot from architecture to marketing. And I don't know about you, but I was pretty blown away by her story. She realised that architecture was making her miserable and decided that she was going to do something about it, even if at that point she didn't know what that was going to be. She started doing the work on herself to uncover what a change might look like for her, what her values were, what her strengths were, and all that kind of thing. She did the networking to find out what different careers were like, and I loved the idea of using YouTube to find people and their videos about a day in the life of being a insert your choice of career here. I actually didn't realise that those videos existed, so it's a great string to add to the bow when it comes to researching what different careers look like. For me, Viviane is an almost perfect case study of what a career change can look like. It's not easy, there's work involved, but when you know that it's going to lead you to a better place, you're prepared to put the work in. And all of that was before Viviane and I started to work together. And I really appreciated her describing how the journey didn't end with that change once she had finished with the one career and started with another. Having made the change, Viviane knew that she wanted to get some support in making her chosen new career as much a success as she could. And that's when we started working together. Viviane said to me before we started recording that if she could inspire just one person to start taking action to help them enjoy their career more, then that would be enough for her. Well, if she has only inspired just one person, I will be very surprised. I hope she's inspired you, and I hope that she's inspired lots of people out there. Now, there's no taking away from the fact that Viviane has got to take credit for most of what she did. But just sometimes you need a bit of help figuring out what action to take. It was genuinely a privilege to work with Viviane and to help her as she started her new career, and I'd love to help you too. If you're in the position where your job's making you unhappy but you just don't know what it is that you could change to, or maybe you've already changed jobs and like Viviane you want some help making it a success, I'd love to see how I can help. You can find out more about the coaching I offer at changewhatlife.com/coaching. That's changewhatlife.com/coaching. And if you'd like a free introductory 30-minute conversation with me, then there's a form there where you can book that in. There's so much uncertainty financially, economically, geopolitically as we start 2023 that there really hasn't been a better time to focus on those things that you can control. And if you would like to take action and you think that I might be able to help you with that, then get in touch, go to changeworklife.com/coaching. We've got another great episode coming up in 2 weeks' time. It's not just a normal interview, but you get to listen to me being a guinea pig for my guests' exercises. It was certainly interesting for me, and I think it's going to be really helpful for you, so make sure that you have subscribed to the show if you haven't already, and I can't wait to see you then. Cheers, bye.